feels crazy to say this, but a year ago, I was nowhere near where I am now. When I first started learning English, I didn't even dream of reaching a C2 level. That's the highest level you can achieve in English. C2 is fluency, where you're able to understand and speak the language almost like a native speaker. But here I am a year later, and I hit that level. It wasn't easy, it wasn't quick, and there were days I felt like I wasn't improving at all. But looking back now, it's clear that there were a few key things I did that made all the difference. Today, I'm going to share how I did it and how you can do the same. So, let me take you back to the beginning. A year ago, I was at a B1 level. I could have conversations, but I was making mistakes, I didn't feel confident, and I was stuck in that learning phase where I wasn't really progressing. My vocabulary was limited and my listening skills were weak. I felt like I wasn't improving as fast as I wanted. But something inside me told me that I could do more. I didn't want to just be good at English. I wanted to master it. I wanted to reach C2. But how? The first thing I did was set clear goals. I realized that if I didn't know exactly where I was going, I'd never get there. So I made a plan. I set short-term goals like, I'll learn 20 new words a week, or I'll read one English book per month. And then I set my long-term goal, to reach a C2 level in a year. But it wasn't just about goals. It was about consistency. If I wanted to make real progress, I had to do something every day, no matter how small. This is where the power of daily practice came in. You might think that daily practice sounds boring or repetitive, but it's exactly what you need to get better. Even when I didn't feel like it, I showed up every day. Some days I practiced for hours, other days just 10 minutes. The important thing was that I did something every single day. I want to stress this. It's not about working hard for a few days or weeks and then giving up. Consistency is key. Even on days when I didn't see progress, I kept going. I knew that those small actions were building up to something big. Now, the second thing I did was immersion. I knew that to reach C2 level, I needed to surround myself with English all the time. And I mean all the time, so I made English a part of my everyday life. I switched my phone, my computer, and even my social media to English. I started watching movies, listening to podcasts, and reading news in English. Not just for a few minutes, but for hours each day. At first, it felt difficult. I didn't understand everything I was hearing or reading, and sometimes it felt like I wasn't improving. But immersion works in ways you don't even realize at the time. Over time, I began to understand more and more. I started to notice patterns in how people spoke, the structure of sentences, and the vocabulary used in different situations. I didn't just learn words in isolation. I learned them in context. The more I exposed myself to English, the more comfortable I became. I remember watching a movie in English without subtitles one day and realizing that I understood almost everything. That was one of my aha moments. That was when I knew I was on the right path. Another thing I did was active listening. This one was huge for me. I didn't just listen passively to English. I actively listened. I would watch a podcast or a video, pause it, repeat the sentences I heard, and try to mimic the pronunciation and rhythm of native speakers. At first, it felt a little awkward, but the more I did it, the more natural it became. I started sounding more fluent. My pronunciation got better, and I was able to speak with more confidence. Alongside listening, I started speaking every day. I know a lot of people are afraid of speaking, especially when they're not confident in their language skills. But I've learned that if you want to improve, you have to speak. Don't wait until you feel perfect. Speak, make mistakes, and learn from them. I started speaking English to myself, repeating phrases, recording myself, and listening to how I sounded. Then, I would try again, correcting my mistakes. I also found a speaking partner. This was a game changer. Having someone to practice with made a huge difference. It gave me a chance to use English in real conversations, and that pushed my learning to the next level. I found someone who was at a similar level to me. and we'd chat about anything and everything in English. Even though we both made mistakes, we helped each other out and kept each other motivated. One of the most important lessons I've learned in this process is that failure is part of the journey. I can't tell you how many times I felt frustrated or discouraged. There were days when I made the same mistakes over and over, or when I couldn't understand a podcast I was listening to. But every mistake was a lesson. Every difficult moment taught me something. And that's something I want you to remember. Don't be afraid to fail. Failing is just part of the process, and it's how we learn. Now, here's another key part of how I hit C2. Using advanced materials. When you're learning English, it's tempting to stay in the comfort zone and use beginner or intermediate resources. But if you want to reach the highest level, you need to challenge yourself. So, I started reading books in English that were much harder than what I was used to. I listened to podcasts that were more complex and followed news in English. It was tough at first, but every time I pushed myself, I grew stronger. I also started to pay more attention to writing. Writing is often neglected, but it's so important. I started writing short essays, journaling in English, and even writing stories. The more I wrote, the better I got at organizing my thoughts and expressing myself clearly. Writing helped me solidify my vocabulary and improve my grammar. The final piece of the puzzle was staying positive and patient. There were times when I felt like giving up, but I always reminded myself that learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. It takes time, it takes effort, and it takes a lot of patience. But as long as I kept pushing, I knew I would get there. And here I am today, at a C2 level. Looking back, it's crazy to think about how far I've come. A year ago, I didn't even think it was possible. But now I can speak, read, and write in English, just like a native speaker. It's been a journey filled with ups and downs, but it's been worth it. So, if you're wondering if it's possible to reach C2 in a year, I'm here to tell you, yes, it is. It's not easy, but if you follow the steps I've shared with you, consistency, immersion, active listening, speaking, writing, and staying positive, you can do it too. I believe in you. You've got this. Just keep going, and in a year, you'll look back and be amazed at how much you've achieved. English isn't just a language, it's a tool that opens doors to new opportunities, new experiences, and new connections. And here's something else I learned during this journey. Learning English isn't a one-size-fits-all process. Everyone has their own path, their own rhythm, and their own style of learning. Some people may prefer reading books, while others might learn best by watching videos or listening to podcasts. The key is figuring out what works for you and sticking with it. For me, it was a mix of everything. I loved watching English TV shows and movies, but I also found that reading books helped me build a stronger vocabulary. Podcasts were my go-to for improving my listening skills, and speaking with people kept me on my toes. Don't be afraid to try different things until you find the combination that works best for you. One of the reasons I was able to make such fast progress was that I embraced mistakes. I didn't try to hide my mistakes or avoid them. I learned from them. When I would speak to someone in English and make a mistake, instead of feeling embarrassed, I would ask them what I said wrong. I would go back and research the correct way, and then practice saying it until it felt natural. Over time, I noticed that I was making fewer mistakes, and the ones I did make were getting smaller and smaller. If you can adopt this mindset, you'll speed up your progress immensely. Mistakes are not setbacks. They are simply stepping stones toward your goal. Think about it. The more mistakes you make, the more you're learning. If you never make mistakes, it means you're not challenging yourself enough and you're not growing. So go ahead, make those mistakes and celebrate them as part of your learning process. Also, I want to share a secret that helped me with fluency. It's something I call thinking in English. This is something that doesn't happen overnight. But once you start doing it, everything changes. Instead of translating from your native language into English, try to think directly in English. For example, when you're walking down the street, describe what you see in your mind in English. Or when you're planning your day, do it in English. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes, and your fluency will improve drastically. I remember the first time I was able to think in English without translating. It felt like a huge breakthrough. It wasn't perfect, but it was a step toward thinking like a native speaker. This was one of the key moments that took me closer to the C2 level. It's like switching a mental gear. Suddenly, your mind is operating in English all the time. One of the challenges that many people face is fear of judgment. It's natural to feel nervous or anxious when speaking a language you're still learning, but you need to push past that fear. I've met many people who are scared to speak because they're worried they'll sound silly or make mistakes. But key is, keep going. I promise you will learn. I hope it's helped you. Subscribe.